We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and on the Internet nationwide 3 times a week.
And I've stayed awake the whole show,
The whole
Marty.
show for David and for Kevin.
Yes.
Boy, that's a tribute to the two of them.
That is.
Our guest by phone is our own Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy. So, Kevin, I was going to start off by asking you a question about Iraq. We did a show last week on Iraq with John Bolton and Patrick O'Donnell. And one of the things that I'm looking at is it almost seems like Obama's getting a pass on this. Do you feel it's his responsibility that we're losing the country?
Very much so. In foreign policy today, the action of what the world thinks of our country is based upon the last 4 or 5 years in a short time frame. Iraq is not just about Iraq. That's also about Syria, about Egypt, about the total Middle East. The president's lack of a strategy has brought part of this to fruition. I mean, if you go around the world, our friends do not trust us, and our enemies do not fear us. That makes an unsafe world. That makes individuals who had started out to be 1,200 men in pickup trucks with machine guns think they can run right on through Iraq and being able to achieve it, while the president sits around and wonders what to do in a situation when they're sitting on a highway. You could have came in, had an easily strategy to take them out. Now they have gone into banks, have $500 million. They're into mosques, into schools, and into others, and much larger. So now your options are even fewer. Splitting the country into thirds, from the Shia, the Sunnis, and the Kurds now, by a lack of action and a lack of strategy and a clear vision, people will challenge. And that president's foreign policy is creating the current problems throughout the world.
You know, Kevin, I call it being Balkanized because it reminds me of Yugoslavia, 20, 25 years ago. And, in reality, it probably should be 3 countries in the first place because, they have their own cultures. Their allegiance is to their tribe, not to the Iraqi flag. It's a made-up flag. So, maybe this is what should have happened in the first place. But, I agree with you because, you're looking at, an ex-KGB guy who's running Russia, and he's looking at this laughing in the background. But one thing that concerns me is I don't see the anger from the American public that I think you should have. Why don't we have the anger that we should have after this like we had after Vietnam?
I think a couple-fold. The country has been at war for quite some time with Iraq and Afghanistan. But so you're always frustrated from that point. But also the other challenges that we have from the president's current policies economically. So our economy is not going well. So you don't focus on the outside as much. But by the way the president left Iraq created this problem. You're wondering what's going to happen with Afghanistan when he's doing the same place through. That puts, if you look long term, it puts a challenge into not only just the current armed forces, but the children about 10 and 8 years old today. What are they going to have to do in the world because of our actions today and the problems that are being created inside the Middle East?
Kevin, I think the most important thing to this president right now are 2 issues, tea times and fundraising. That's about it. But I wanted to move on and talk a little bit about immigration. I know that your office in Bakersfield has been overrun with lots of people talking about immigration. I'd like to find out what your strategy is, what you plan to do, and what you plan to support in the future on immigration.
Well, I've always said from the very beginning, anything on immigration, you have to first secure the border. And you look at the humanitarian crisis that is going along our border today. It's being created by the president's policy saying any child that comes here under the age of 18 will get citizenship. So now 3 countries in Central America are sending their children up through the desert. How many kids are dying in the desert? How many are being taken for human trafficking and other, and just trying to come into this country? Well, it then goes and shows that we have no border protection. So how would you move forward if you didn't first stop the problem? So you first have to secure the border before you have any discussion on the other. But you can't continue to have what we currently have. 42% of everyone that's here illegally came here legally on a visa program. So our visa program doesn't work. We can't sit idly by and do nothing about that because you'll perpetuate the problem. You can't sit by and do nothing about the border. You perpetuate the problem. So until you solve those, I don't know how you move forward. And what the president's trying to do and what protesters in the office are trying to do is just sheer intimidation to break the rule of law. And we are a country of immigrants. We want to continue to have legal immigration when we go forward, but we want a system that actually works.
Our guest by phone, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
You know, Kevin, this discussion has been going on for years, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. We just keep pushing it to the next group of legislators. But my specific question is, with all these kids coming in, what are we going to do with these kids? Can we send them back? Are we going to make them citizens, new Democratic voters, or what?
You know what's very interesting? In the code, if you come as a minor from Mexico, we send you back. If you come from these other countries, we do not send you back. You get a ticket. Why would we treat one immigrant different than the others from the illegal process? We should have humanitarian aid for these children. We should feed them. We should clean them. We should bathe them. And then we should get them back and unite them with their families back in their countries. And we've been on the president because he's got to send a message into Central America where there are posters up to say, come to America, you become a citizen.
Kevin, just let's assume for a second that we're able to close the borders, okay? Mm-hmm. Then what do we do? What's the solution after that? Because there's got to be something beyond that.
Oh, yeah. Then you got to have an immigration system to see that it works. You got to reform. You got to reform the visa system, as I talked about. Only 14% of green cards go to those who are working. We say in the code as well that no one country could have more than 7% of the green cards. Why? I don't know. Maybe one should be different than the others. I mean, we don't look at our current system through there. We have those who get engineering degrees and PhDs, and we have what is called in there that the H2 fills up in 4 days. And so they go to another country to compete against us when they've gone to college here and got a higher education. Why do we do that? And then we have an immigration system that it's just the luck of the lottery that you're able to come here, and then it's chain migration. We just take your family. I think that whole system itself has to be reworked of what we look at and what we want our immigration system to look at itself.
You know, Kevin, it's I'm actually, I shouldn't say a victim, but I was part of that system because I was originally born in Toronto, and my stepdad came from Europe. He wanted to go to the United States. It was his dream as a kid. Had to become a Canadian citizen because after the war you couldn't come directly from Europe. So he became a Canadian citizen and came over with my mom as a Canadian citizen. So, but it took him 15 years to go through the whole process, and I know how much it used to just really irk him to watch people coming across the border and all of a sudden becoming citizens. I mean, it's not fair for people that are going through the system properly.
I have more individuals from all walks of life who come to me and said, I did it legally. And they'll have broken English, and they'll say, why does somebody else get a jump in front of me? And think about it. Some of the greatest strengths of this country is the rule of law and innovation. And if you create a society that breaks down the rule of law, you'll break down society itself. So you want an immigration system that works. You want an immigration system that helps the country to grow in the right manner. And you want one that respects the rule of law.
Hey, Kevin, let's talk about impeachment for a second. There's been a lot of talk about impeaching Holden. Is that possible? And then there's also been talk about impeaching the president. Is there any legal standing for that?
Look, I think our best avenue here, the president has been reelected. He's got a short time frame here left. We've got to move the country forward. I think when you're looking at what the Speaker Boehner is doing about challenging him, you look about the court cases there, lots of times if you walk right into impeachment, they make that all political, and then nothing goes forward. Remember, if you look historically, normally in the third election cycle of a president, the party out of power gains somewhere about 24 seats in the House, only except the time that we impeached Bill Clinton. And this president becomes so political in that nature of where he goes. I think the best thing that we can do is gain seats in the House, win the majority of the Senate, and put these bills on this president's desk. We have a lawsuit that will challenge him based upon the decisions that he's making if he does something that goes beyond the three co-equal branches. We just had our court decision, the Supreme Court. I want to get this country moving forward. I want it to be successful. I want it to be long-term and not get caught up in a political battle.
Kevin, thank you so much, and thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. We're out of time. We will be back in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.